Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Transfer Talk on the Copper Club podcast. This week, we are focusing on two Brazilians that Aston Villa seem to have their eye on. So even if you're not a Villa fan and you love Premier League football, it's worth sticking around for another episode as we talk through a couple of players who may be making the move this summer. Nathalia Tavares joins me, and the first player we will be discussing is Real Madrid's Endrick, a player who we have spoken about time and time again from his days at Palmeiras, his struggles, we'll call it struggles, at Real Madrid, and now looking at a potential second loan away from the Bernabeu, which I think is a great move. And it could be Aston Villa. Roma have been linked as well, but it does look as though Endrick will be spending this season elsewhere. And I think that's like a really sensible decision from a really sensible player. Endrick may be a maverick both on and off the pitch, but I absolutely love him. Endrick is magic, and I think a move to Villa could be, from a selfish point of view, I'd love to see him in the Premier League and testing himself, but it could be an ideal fit. But look, we've spoke, Nathalia, about Endrick loads on this show. We're big fans of him. You've seen him in person as well. Like, let's just talk about his days at Palmeiras at first, because you don't want to say he burst on the scene. Everyone hates that expression now, but he did, and he was frightening, and he won Palmeiras that title, which is why Real Madrid obviously signed him up before he won the title, and why they wanted to bring him over. It hasn't worked out as of yet, but I think we need to tell our listeners and remind them just of how good he was and why we hype him up so much.
Yeah, that player is still there. He just needs confidence and game time to get back. And as you said, I feel like the best move for him is to go somewhere else this season. As much as he was giving back the 9th shirt from, Real Madrid. So who knows, maybe he's on Jose Mourinho's plans. But I do feel like he should be looking for a move where he can play more. And I feel like his physicality and the way he moves, his pace, his aggressiveness at times, he just fits the Premier League so well. So seeing him go to Villa and work under Emery would be like fantastic for him. And probably he would go back in a better position to fight for a spot at Real Madrid, even though he has Mbappe, Vinicius Junior, and a bunch of people that can play 9 or false 9 in Real Madrid. But we're talking about someone that has the potential to be generational, and that potential has to, be fed so he can get there. And I know we've seen him do what he does in the World Cup. Unfortunately, he couldn't score, but you saw the fundamentals, you saw the physicality, you saw the intelligence that he has. So he has to go to a club, or even if he stays at Madrid, who knows? But he has to be in an environment that's going to allow him to, develop and make it even better, the way he plays and the way he scans the pitch, the way he understands the game, because that's what it's about here in this moment of his development, because we know what he can do. He can change games. He can change championships. It's crazy. He did it at 18, 17. So why not do it at 20? He's more ready at the moment. So it will be really interesting to see what he looks for and where he goes to. But the thing is, he's being very, sensible when it comes to career choices. And I feel like that's a big plus for him as well. Yeah,
the move to Lyon, I think it was the first time European football fans got to understand the hype around Endrick. For me, I've banged on the drum about Esteval and Endrick, and I think they're both generational talents. I will use the word that you have spoken about there, but I think the way in which we've seen Endrick really show, we didn't see it with Esteval straight away, that will come in time, but the way in which Endrick made that move to Lyon, and his numbers were just absolutely insane. I dived into Y-Scout before we jumped into the show to sort of verify what we had seen, but he made 16 appearances in France, started 14 of those. Now, look, in true Endrick style, he averaged 3.17 shots per match. That was the second highest in the league. Bearing in mind, he only played half a season.
Yeah.
And I think that really shows Endrick's confidence on the pitch, how he just wants to do what strikers should do. He doesn't hesitate in moments. And we've spoken before about the power that he can generate from his left foot without having much backlift. And that gives him that opportunity to strike the ball from range or in and around the box. And most of his goals, or he scored 5 goals in France and 7 assists, which we'll get onto in a minute. But of his 5 goals, most of them were in the bottom corner because he can just generate power and put it away from the keeper, striking it on the ground and still beating them. I think is such an impressive quality to have. And look, we saw it at Palmeiras. We've seen it at Lyon now. And for the Premier League to see it as well would just be an absolute blessing. But he's not just a number 9, and you've said it there, in that false 9 position. He can play out wide, which is what Ancelotti was looking to do over the summer. I think he has that flexibility, and the fact that he got 7 assists for Lyon, I looked at it a little bit further, and he was the 4th highest in France last season, 4 assists with 6. And I think that just shows his vision and his technique. Listeners may have seen the 1 or 2 through balls he played for Lyon, the outside of his boot, just one touch. It was just excellent movement from his body. Yeah. He doesn't sometimes even have to control the ball. He moves in favour of the ball in order to play it on the outside of his left foot or just get into the byline. Just so much intelligence with how long he wants to hold onto the ball or whether he sees a teammate in space. So again, 2.56 crosses per match, which was the 25th best in the league. Again, he only started 14 matches, is another stat which just goes to show that Endrick can play out wide as well, which makes him a really good loan. So yes, you may not be signing Endrick at the end of the season because he will be a star for Real Madrid when he gets that opportunity. But I think it was just worth highlighting there that if you sign Endrick, you must almost give him a free role. Don't pigeonhole him as a number 9, because sometimes that's when he goes missing. Yes.
Yeah, and I do feel like playing under Unai could give him a little bit more discipline in terms of, how he treats the ball and how he behaves when teams are in defensive transitions and everything. We saw in the World Cup against Norway, it wasn't good, but I feel like this defensive side of his, because of his physical attributes already and the way he sees the game, playing under a manager such as Unai can get it to the next level and it will make him even more complete. So, as you said, he can play 9, he can play in the right wing, maybe even in the left wing, who knows. But that gives much more, versatility, both for him as a player and for the team as well.
I think what gives me a lot of hope when it comes to Endrick is the fact that he was interviewed when he was at Lyon. I'm not sure who the interview was with, but they were trying to get to know him a little bit more because he had like 2 or 3 really good games from his debut. So they were like, oh, okay, yeah, we need to get more spotlight on Endrick and get to know who he is. And they asked him what he did in his spare time, one of those generic questions. But he said, I don't do anything. He was like, I go to training. I spend as many hours on the training pitch as I can. I go home. I play my PlayStation, Xbox, make sure I get 8-9 hours. And I'm back again because it's my aim to become like the best striker in the world. And I think the person interviewing him was like, okay, I wanted more from him because I think there's that perception of Endrick that he is a little bit cheeky or a little bit of a maverick off the pitch. But when he knows he has this talent, he knows he has a real opportunity and his desire to be the best, I think it's just come through with his interviews. So it may seem a little bit boring, but if you're going to sign Endrick, for him to have that mentality, and he's had that since day dot, I think that's why we've seen him progress. And still only 20 years old. I can't wait to see how his career progresses. And I think another smart loan move, I think Aston Villa could be a really good fit for him. Not saying he's going to be a direct replacement for Morgan Rogers, but he's left a huge creative hole. And maybe Endrick's going to come in and patch that up in the meantime without Villa having to go out and spend an awful lot of money. So look, if the Endrick loan happens, it's going to be maybe tailor-made for the Premier League. I completely agree with you there, Nathalia. So we'll have to wait and see with that particular move. But one player that Villa are willing to spend money on, and Palmeiras are knocking it back at the moment, is their 22-year-old winger/forward, another player who can be quite diverse, and that's Allan for Palmeiras, who, and I can see potentially why Villa fans may be sceptical because they signed Gremio's Alisson and through injury he's not been seen, but we spoke about that move when it first happened and we were very surprised that a deal was done. He'd only played 30 games at the time. His output wasn't the best. there's definitely a player in there for sure, but he's one who's made the move early. But with Allan, he hasn't made the move early. He's 22. If we look at the data, he made over 50 appearances last season. This year, he's already made 6 appearances in the Libertadores and started all of those. And he started way more games this year in the league, 14 out of his 16 so far, where last season he only started 8 out of 28. Abel Ferreira does an excellent job nurturing these players. We've seen it with Endrick, Esteval, Luis Guilherme. But for some reason, he's wanted to hold on to Allan a little bit longer. Those bids have been rejected. He's obviously not won a trophy in a couple of years, and I think he's desperate to keep his best squad together. But he's holding on to him, and I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts here, Nathalia. We haven't spoken too much about him on the show. There's snippets and there's games where you see the talent there and why European teams are coming, but maybe his goal output isn't as strong as what it could be. Maybe there's some temperament issues. We've seen him sent off this season. Yeah. There's just little bits here, there. I would just finish up with saying, I think he reminds me a little bit of Luis Guilherme, where there is a lot of talent there, but what direction is it going to go in? So how do you see it? How do you see him going?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I totally agree with you, as in terms of, I hate to see players leaving Brazil so early, because it takes a toll when they go outside, when they go abroad and see that it's completely different. With Allan, it would be completely different because he's 22. He didn't win the Copa Libertadores last year, but he started that game. He has become a key figure for Abel Ferreira this season. And I was unfortunately there when Flamengo lost 3-0 to Palmeiras at the Maracanã. And Allan just ran the show, He scored, he assists. So there's a player there, obviously. I feel like he obviously still needs to develop. And the jump to the Premier League, how is he going to handle physically? And, with the intensity, it's going to be different. Yeah, he's used to playing every 3-4 days, but the Libertadores and the Champions League are totally different, in pace and everything. So that's a concern. But he's a 22-year-old, so he's more mature than usually players are when they leave not only Brazil, but, South America in general in these times, But he's great. He's got fantastic pace. He carries the ball super well. He's got 10 goal contributions this year, which I think is an improvement from last year for sure. And he's not afraid to shoot, not afraid to shoot at all. Maybe he doesn't have, the best chances, but he does score out of those not great chances. You wouldn't expect him to score a goal, but then he goes and scores. There is a quality there. I feel like he's got almost 40% shots on target, which is pretty good for me, especially when it comes to a winger. And yeah, I just feel like it's all about developing, because he still loses possession a lot, in my opinion, but that's because he likes to have the ball. He likes to carry the ball. So he loses possession a lot, but he's also super involved. So you would expect someone to be more involved and to lose the possession more. He's obviously going to need to treat the ball better when he's in England, because that could be fatal in a counter-attack. But overall, I see him as a profile that's ready to go to another club, to a better league, and take the next step in his career, especially because he's in that age and he's got that mentality as well. So I'm interested to see if Villa pushes, because Palmeiras is in no rush to sell. They don't need to sell, obviously. So it's all going to be on Villa wanting to have him now, or if they can wait to, I don't know, January or next season.
Yeah, I think January looks more likely at this stage. They obviously want to focus on winning the title and the Libertadores, and it's similar to Andre Fluminense before he moved across to Wolves, right? He had an opportunity to go to Liverpool and delayed it. But it's going to be a sweet spot in terms of, look, he's 22 now. He's had that experience. But if he leaves it a little bit too late, will he get an opportunity again as big as Villa? So it's all about the timing. But look, he's got experience behind him. And just to put some more numbers behind it, looking at Y-Scout again, he's got the 5th most shots in the league, 1.92 per match. So that echoes exactly what you've just said. His crosses are extremely low, just over 1 per match, which is really average for his position. But then I think if we look at him, he's not a player who likes to go to the byline or look to just put
No.
meaningless crosses into the box. He's more targeting that pass in between the fullback and the centre back, or looking at cutting inside to make something happen, have a shot from range, which backs up the first stat. But I've noticed this season he's rather wants to be the player who's in the box for poaching on rebounds or looking to get in and amongst the goals in a slightly different manner, because he shoots from range a lot, but I think he needs a little bit more work when it comes to scoring from outside the box. I think 80% of his goals have been inside the 18-yard box, so maybe that's something which needs to change or focus more on if he moves to Villa. But a stat that I did really like about him was he was the fourth highest in the league for offensive duels. Really good at putting the press on and winning the ball back high up the pitch. And I think that is an attribute which is definitely needed to succeed in Europe, let alone and definitely the Premier League. We have seen players move across and fail. Ramon Sosa, when he moved to Forest, wasn't a player who wins offensive duels, and his time didn't last long in England. So I think that's a trait which is there. So combine that with the fact that, as you said, he's almost like a born dribbler. He loves to get at players. He has had a few games where have been standout performances. As you said, that goal and performance against Flamengo last season in the Libertadores against Liga de Quito, that was his statement performance.
Yeah.
Villa fans, if you want to go and get really excited about him, watch the highlights from that particular match, because that showed what he could do. I think he just needs to show it more on a consistent level. And it'd be interesting to see how he fits into Aston Villa, because with Palmeiras, he's in a team full of superstars and he still tries to make things happen. So it's not a case of him going from a team where he is the star player into one where he's going to be a small fish in a big pond. And he's at the right age. Maybe, I don't want to sound too skeptical. The stats are there and he's a really talented player.
Yeah.
He just reminds me a little bit of Luis Guilherme, another player who moved across. He moved a little bit too early to West Ham and then wasn't given an opportunity. Now he's been playing at Sporting and doing a lot better. But a player who's very direct, but sometimes doesn't have too much in his locker in terms of if a fullback has his number, it's very difficult for Allan to change his approach if plan A doesn't work. And that's what I'm a little bit concerned on. I'm sure that can be worked on. I just don't want to sit here and say that Allan is the next Esteval or the next Endrick. He's not in that category at all.
Yeah.
Just managing expectations, but I do think he is way more prepared than Gremio's Alisson, and I'm sure, Nathalia, that you'll probably agree with me on that statement.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like when we spoke about Alisson back in the day, he had so, few minutes. And it was weird because I didn't feel like they were coming for him. But it's that mentality of, oh, there's an opportunity here, so let's make that opportunity count. It didn't work out so well up till now. But there is a player there. So hopefully they figure out a plan for him and he can, turn it around and play for Villa or any other big club in Europe, because he's got the talent for it. But as we were saying, it would be totally different with Allan. He's been playing consistently, not in terms of performance, because at 22, you're going to have your better days and your worst days, and it's going to be okay. But he's been playing consistently. Abel Ferreira has been giving him more opportunities, more responsibilities, and he's playing in a team that has a lot of leadership, and he's being mentored by those kinds of players who have experience abroad as well. So I do feel like the scenario for Allan to go to the Premier League at the moment is way, way better. And he's also got this defensive, minded attributes and mentality to his game that Alisson didn't have that much. That's why we even see Allan sometimes playing as right wing back, depending on what Abel has for the day. So it's a completely different, scenario here. And I feel like if Villa fans want to compare maybe the situation, oh, we're going for another Alisson. No, you're not going for another Alisson. It's going to be completely different. And I feel like the chances of it working out from the start would be like way, way better.
Absolutely. Well put, Nathalia. Villa fans, we hope you've enjoyed this. We'll wait and see if those deals are done. Let us know your thoughts and opinions. We want to hear from you. And we're going to be doing so many more transfer talks, not just Villa, not just the Premier League. We're going to be focusing on players moving across to Europe potentially throughout the summer. So if you've enjoyed this, subscribe. We'll be back sporadically with these transfer talks, but we've just released our Copa Libertadores latest preview. So if you want to get to know about these players and teams even further, that's exactly what we do here on the Copa Club. So we hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be speaking to you guys very soon.